Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. We will get started in just a minute with our DC Family Reads event with the book I Wish. We're going to give a few more minutes for people to join. I know we have some classes coming in and we have some parents joining us on their lunch break. And so again, we thank you for spending some time with us today to dive deeper for National Poetry Month. Welcome again to the Book Talk for I Wish. I am Megan Waters, the Director of Programs at Turning the Page DC, host for today's event. Turning the Page DC is a nonprofit that links public schools, families, and communities so that together we can ensure students receive valuable educational resources and a high-quality public education. In our partnership with DC Family Reads and DC Public Library, we are so thrilled to introduce the book I Wish, written by Toon Talegan, illustrated by Ingrid Godin, and translated by David Colmer. In addition to the print version, there's going to be unlimited ebook copies of I Wish available for a download from both DC Public Library and DC Public Schools. So check the library website at dclibrary.org for the links and additional activities. For this very special occasion, we have an incredibly special person. We have Daniel Handler, aka Lemony Snicket, who has written many books and screenplays. His highly popular 13-book collection of a series of unfortunate events has been made into a movie and a Netflix series. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Handler, who hails from San Francisco and who has been caught singing and playing acoustic many times in his life. Welcome, Daniel.
Hello. How's everybody? I can't see you or hear you, but I know you're there. I'm very happy to come to you in what is this morning from my office. I am in San Francisco, where it is cold and blustery. I'm speaking, I know, to some schools that are in Washington, D.C., which I'm told is beautiful and charming and hot, which I do not enjoy at all. I enjoy the horrible gray weather of San Francisco that is happening now. I'm full of my morning coffee and my morning water and my morning toast. And I've been thinking for months now about this book, I Wish, of which I am a big fan. As your charming host this morning told you, this book is written by Toon Talegan, a name that is really fun to say out loud. I don't know if all of you are there would like to say it out loud with me, but I would like to say it. I'm going to say it again. I Wish, which is written by Toon Talegan. It just rolls off the tongue. I wish I were named Toon Talegan, and so when my mother called me, she would say, Toon Talegan, how are you? Instead of, hey, bud, which is generally what she says. And the pictures, the illustrations are by Ingrid Godin, who is an astonishing illustrator of great power. And then you can see down here in slightly smaller letters, but not for any insulting reason, that the translator is David Colmer, which means that he took the words from the Dutch and he put them into English, which is a very special skill. I don't have that skill at all. I can hardly take words that are in English and turn them into English. I can hardly even do that. So I'm very impressed with David Colmer, who has made this beautiful, beautiful book. Now, maybe when I was holding up my copy of the book, you'll see that something inappropriate was happening, which is that a felt carrot was dangling from the bottom of the book. Why is this? Because I couldn't find a bookmark. So at the last minute, when I was about to talk, I said to myself, I want to find a bookmark so I can mark this wonderful page. So when I read a little bit from this book, it'll be here. And instead, I could only find this carrot made of felt. Here it is. It was a gift. Okay. So now I'm going to read a little bit of this book, and I'm going to talk about the book as I go, because I find the book so fascinating. And then I'm going to read some work from other people who I believe are in the audience, who are students. And then I'm going to stop talking, and you will ask me some questions, and I will try to answer them. And then we're all going to stop talking and go on with our lives and never again meet, probably. Okay. Are you ready? I can't hear you say if you're ready, but I'm just going to trust that you're ready. If you aren't ready, don't say anything. Okay, I think you're all ready. So here is the book. I'm using some technology which hardly ever goes wrong, but it is going wrong now. All right, the technology is going wrong now, so I can't show you the book. I can only read it to you. It's so frustrating. Why does that happen? Well, I'm reading from this book, I Wish. And what I really like about this book is that there is an illustration here, and there is a text here, and they go together in unusual ways. We've all read books where the text is just straightforwardly illustrated, right? Where somebody says, and then the leopard fell down the stairs, and then there's a picture of a leopard falling down the stairs. That is not this kind of book at all. In this kind of book, the illustrations and the text kind of sit together like friends. They aren't the same thing, but they're getting along very nicely. And that's one of the things that I thought would be interesting about this book. So for instance, on this page, which is one of my favorite pages, there's this illustration here by Ingrid Godin, which is a haunting portrait of someone who looks like a boy to me, a little hard to tell, wearing a handsome buttoned shirt in a more or less pleasant striped color. And then there's a text, and the text says this: if I ever saw an ad like this, wanted, secretive boy for secret duties, I would apply. They're talking about getting a job. At last, they would exclaim when I walked in, because they'd never seen anyone as secretive as me. I exceeded all expectations because I wasn't just secretive, I was inscrutable too. Inscrutable is one of my favorite words in the world, and I'm very grateful that David Colmer, the translator, decided that what was being said by Tun te Liegen meant inscrutable. Inscrutable means that you can't tell what someone is thinking. And it's a very good skill to have. For instance, if I am going like this, I'm not very inscrutable, because probably it means that I'm happy. And if I'm going like this, it means I'm frightened, or perhaps something has dropped on my foot, so I'm not inscrutable either. But a good inscrutable expression might be like this. What am I thinking? What am I doing? And I think that this illustration, the person seems quite inscrutable too. I exceeded all expectations because I wasn't just secretive, I was inscrutable too. True inscrutability, what a beautiful word, inscrutability. True inscrutability is a rare thing. The next day, I would start on my secret duties, concerning which I am not at liberty to make any statements. What a wonderful sentence. I love a sentence that says there cannot be a sentence. The next day, I would start on my secret duties, concerning which I am not at liberty to make any statements. At night, I'd go to bed with Band-Aids over my mouth to make sure I didn't give anything away in my sleep. And if someone asked, "What are you doing these days?" I'd shrug my shoulders and reply with an inscrutable expression on my face. Nothing special. If only they knew. That's great. I'm going to read another one here. This illustration. Also someone wearing a very charming shirt. I decided to wear a sweater today with long, flattering lines. That's what I decided to wear. But this person decided to wear a kind of shirt and then a tiny little clip in their hair. I'm very envious of people who can wear clips in their hair. I never get to. My hair is almost always too short. And even when technically it's long enough, people say to me, Daniel, they say, or if it's my mother, Bud, don't wear a clip in your hair. But she's wearing a clip in her hair, and I think she looks great. Are you ready? This is from I Wish. I wish I wasn't scared of dying. There are people who aren't scared of death. When they see him coming, they just stand there calmly and call out, "Hey, death, it's so nice to see you." But those same people hide in the basement during thunderstorms or scream and climb up on tables when they see a mouse. I like mice and thunderstorms. Maybe everyone needs to be scared of something. It doesn't matter what, just like everyone needs to breathe and eat and drink. Otherwise, you die. Now, I don't know if I'm personally frightened of death, but I think about it a lot. I think about how every moment that's happening right now will pass and brings us closer and closer to the grave. Every moment that you listen to a stranger and a striking striped sweater speak to you is a moment closer and closer to death. That's why you might see in my office behind my shoulder, not that shoulder, this shoulder, is a painting that reminds me of death. It says trouble with an axe and a tree that's been cut down, a tree that is probably no longer alive due to the axe. And it reminds me that death is creeping closer and closer at every moment. Every perhaps inscrutable moment, we're getting closer and closer to death, like this moment here. Oof, that was a tough one. All right, I'm going to read one more. This is another beautiful and striking image by Ingrid Godin. And now I'll read the words by Tune to Liegen, which have been translated so ably by David Colmer. Thanks to him for speaking Dutch. I've never even been to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which is where Tune to Liegen lives and is the land of the Dutch language. I have not been there. I very much wanted to go. There are people very dear to my heart who live there, and there are people very dear to my heart who are from there. And I'm looking forward to traveling, perhaps with all of you, when the pandemic is over, to the Kingdom of the Netherlands. But right now, I am so appreciative that it's been translated for me into English, because I don't speak any Dutch at all. So before our joint trip to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, when all of us are going to go together, I think all of us should take some lessons in Dutch together, unless you're already fluent in Dutch, in which case you could be my Dutch tutor. But in the meantime, David Colmer has taken the words of Dutch and turned them into English, for which I'm very grateful. I'm going to show you this image again, and then I'm going to read you the text. I wish I always had an alibi. Alibi is another wonderful word. I don't know if you know what an alibi is. An alibi is a story that you tell to prove that you were not committing some terrible crime. Like, for instance, if the police come to my house today, and perhaps they will, and they say, "How many people did you murder this morning?" I will say, "I murdered no people, and I have an alibi. I was on screen discussing this book by Tune to Liegen." And the policeman will say, "Tune to Liegen, the famous Dutch writer." And I was like, "Yes, this book, I wish, has been translated by David Coleman. It has beautiful illustrations by Ingrid Godin." And they'll say, "All right, we believe you." I wish I always had an alibi. If they arrested me, I'd smile and say, "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it couldn't possibly have been me. This is my alibi." I'd pull it out and smack it down on the table in front of them. I'm going to say that again. I'd pull it out and smack it on the table in front of them. Smack it down on the table in front of them. It's really fun to smack things down on the table. I don't know if all of you out in the audience are sitting at a table as I am, but I'm going to choose something to smack down on the table as a demonstration. And what I'm going to choose is one of my favorite things in the world, a legal pad. A lot of people wonder how I managed to write books, and this is why. It's because of legal pads. I like the name because I like reassuring myself that what I'm doing is legal, that I won't get in trouble for it because it's legal. But I also like it itself. I like the size of a legal pad, bigger than my head. I like the color of a legal pad, faint yellow. I like the lines on a legal pad, 2 little lines going this way, many little lines going the other way, and I like to sit and write it. And I'm going to use the legal pad to smack down on the table. Are you ready? Let's all, if you're at a table and you have a suitable object, we can all smack something on the table together. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was satisfying. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it couldn't possibly have been me. This is my alibi. I'd pull it out and smack it down on the table in front of them. If they thought it wasn't enough, I'd have another. I'd be the boy with 1,000 alibis. They'd sigh and open the door of the station and let me go again. In the clear, no matter what, and I'd be like that forever. So as you can see, the story, if you will, the text in I Wish, which is by Tune Terligan, and the illustrations by Ingrid Godin go together in kind of unusual ways. And on one side are all these little speeches by a character usually, and on the other side is a portrait of that character, which is an unusual way to make a book and very striking, and I found it extremely charming. So I know that some people did what I was inspired to do after this. And there's kind of 2 games you can play when you're thinking of I Wish. One is a game that you can play by yourself. You don't have to play it by yourself, but you can. And the other one requires another person. But it requires another person, doesn't have to be in your sitting at the same table as you, where you smack down things. Doesn't have to be in your same household. It can be anywhere. And one of the nice things, I think, one of the few nice things about these times that we've been in recently is how many people are connecting who are far away, who don't know each other, the way I'm connecting with you right now. So the game involves having a picture, drawing a picture and making a text. And maybe you're going to draw the picture and write the text. Maybe you're going to draw the picture and the other person's going to write the text. Maybe another person's going to draw the picture and you're going to do the text. This is how it goes. So all you need is your favorite thing to write upon, in my case, a legal pad. Your favorite thing to write with, in my case, a little pen that I found on my desk. And you can take a few moments, just a few moments. We're going to do it now. I'm going to do it now. I don't know what you're doing because I can't see you, but you're welcome to join me. And I drew a line down the middle of my beautiful legal pad. And I'm going to draw something. I'm nowhere near as good an illustrator as Ingrid Godin. I'm very jealous of her and of many other illustrators because they can all do something very well. So I've drawn a mysterious portrait, and then I'm going to think, and I'm going to draw just a tiny little bit. I'm going to write a tiny little bit of text to go with it. But if I were playing with a friend here, I'm not, because I'm all by myself. But if I were playing with a friend, I would pass them the picture, and they would pass maybe a picture that I had written, that they had drawn, and then I would write text for their picture, and they would write text for my picture, and then we would compare them and have a charming time. Okay, I did it. So here, once again, is the portrait. And here's the text. My eyes are made of nighttime. That's what I said, because when I looked at this picture with these big, strange, staring circles, I thought to myself, they look like eyes. They look like a portrait. I'm going to say my eyes are made of nighttime. So that's something that I've been inspired to do many a time since I started reading I Wish, because I like so much the way the illustrations and the text go together that I began to play this game. I played it with other people. I played it once in my backyard so people could gather. I played it across screen with people, and it's quite the charming game. I've played it with nieces of mine. I've played it with my wife, who is another illustrator of whom I'm jealous because she's such a good artist. I've played it with my mother, even though she calls me Bud. And I've played it with various friends of mine. So one of the reasons that I thought it would be fun to come here and talk about this book is to recommend this game that was inspired. And I know that it's inspired other people, including someone I don't know at all, Mrs. Hester. And, Ms. Hester. I didn't mean to imply that her marital status in any way. I don't know Hester, we'll just say, at all. So I don't know her marital status. And frankly, I'm not really interested in her marital status. So we're going to keep calling her Ms. Hester. Her 5th grade class did some poems and illustrations directly inspired by I Wish. I believe that they all worked on their same illustration and their same text together. And they've done a really charming job. I wish that Ms. Hester was my 5th grade teacher. I did not have a very good 5th grade teacher. I don't want to name this person, even though I have no idea where they are, and even though I never liked them. Well, I think I'll just say that they were a felt carrot. They weren't actually, they were a very mean man. But it was as disappointing as having a felt carrot for a 5th grade teacher. So I'm very impressed with Ms. Hester. I hope Ms. Hester and I are someday allowed to meet actually, and perhaps we'll travel to the Kingdom of the Netherlands together. That would be a fun time. I would enjoy that, I think. All right, so here is a I Wish text by Hulna Del K. We don't know the last name. We only know the letter K, or perhaps K period is the entire last name. I don't know. I wish I could play outside. I want to play outside much more. I could play different kinds of sports. I miss running, shooting, and scoring goals in soccer. When playing basketball, I miss doing tricks. I miss having conversations with new people, making friends, and playing games like tag. I really like this text, and I really like all of the individual sentences in it. My hat is off to this particular author. And one of the things that I really like is thinking about the way that the sentence, I could play different kinds of sports, sits with the sentence, I miss having conversations with new people, making friends, and playing games like tag. Because I'd never thought about having conversations with new people and making friends being a different kind of sport, but it is a kind of sport, which actually means that I'm more interested in sports than I thought, because I'm not generally interested in sports where you have to run around kicking a ball. It exhausts me and it makes me crave a gin martini. But I do like the sport in which I'm having conversations with new people. So I'm grateful for this text for reminding me. Let's move on. Let's read another one. Oh yes, this is the illustration that went with it, which I can see is very much in the style of Ingrid Godin, with the large head and the staring eyes, but then also this illustrator has added their own personal spin to it, which I admire, which are the various sports equipment. I see a football. I see what I presume is a soccer ball. I see what I think is a bowling ball. And I also see a magic 8 ball, which is intriguing to me. Perhaps telling the future also counts as a sport, which is something interesting to see. And yes, here's another one, which I think is too hard to read from the screen, but I admire very much. And I will say, because sometimes when somebody says that something is hard to read because it's handwritten, it sounds insulting. And but I don't think it's insulting at all, because I have terrible writing. I have the worst handwriting that anyone has ever seen. This, when I wrote this here for you, this is the absolute neatest that I can do, and it's terrible. You can't read that. I had to read it to you. I have the worst writing. And when I was in 6th grade, another terrible teacher of mine, I'm not going to say her name, let's just say that she's also a felt carrot. She said to me, Daniel, she said to me, if I know that you want to be a writer, she said, which was true. I then already wanted to be a writer. And she said, if you don't improve your handwriting, no one will ever read what you write. Well, she was completely wrong. So I feel a special kinship and camaraderie with people who have terrible handwriting. So my hat is off to the person who wrote this. That's the kind of handwriting that is difficult to discern on screen. My hat is off to you. Moving on to Veronica G. It's funny because I have a friend named Veronica and her last name begins with G. Also, there's the heroine of a novel, Veronica Gans, the novel, and the character is Veronica Gans. So now I'm both wondering if this is my friend Veronica or Veronica Gans from a novel, but it probably isn't. It's some different Veronica. Hello, stranger Veronica. I wish I was brave. I wouldn't be easily scared. People that I know say, that girl gets easily scared. People mostly make fun of me because I easily get scared. Being brave is very good. When people scare me, my heart would stop to pump so hard and people would start laughing. I would go outside and say, want to be brave, I need to be brave, but I am never brave. I would always sigh. Oh, I do like to sigh. I enjoy sighing very much. Can we pause for a minute and all sigh together? I'm going to read the line sigh and then let's all sigh. I would always sigh because people scaring me would make me feel bad. I admire this poem very much too, and I am also a person who is easily frightened. So not only do I admire the poem, but I sympathize with Veronica. And I learned a trick. I know that Veronica's not asking for advice, but I learned a trick about bravery, which is to get brave after the scary thing, not during the scary thing. During the scary thing is too scary. And before the scary thing is probably even scarier if you know that a scary thing is coming. That's the scariest time. And I'm not good at being brave then, and I'm not good at being brave during the scary thing. But when the scary thing is over, when it's over, you can say, well, now I'm brave. It's very satisfying. So Veronica, if you were looking for advice, which you didn't give it, but I'm a wonderful person at giving unsolicited advice that no one asked for. I was just getting scared after the scary thing. And is there an illustration with Veronica's? I can't remember. Oh, yes, there it is. You can definitely see another artist is illustrated by Ingrid Godin here. She studied Ingrid Godin and she did an excellent job. I'm once again admiring of the hair because I would like to have hair like that in which I could wear a clip. But it's never happened for me. And I think we have time for maybe one more. Oh, we do. Oh, here is Shayla G's, which I admire a lot. And I don't know if this is really on purpose, but I like the fact that the illustration for this text is a picture of the text handwritten. It's genius. I can't wait to steal this idea for myself and do a book in which I don't have to do any illustrations. I just have to take pictures of what I've written. It's genius. Shayla G, perhaps the same G. Maybe she's related to Veronica G. Who knows? Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. Why are you even talking about it? I wish I was a chef. I wish I was one of the best. I wish I had my own restaurant. I wish I can invite all the people I want. I wish I was cooking now, but I have to wait out. And this is my story of I wish I was a chef. I enjoy this very much. My whole life, I've waited for the perfect phrase, wait out. I've never used it, and I'm going to start using it a lot. I have to wait out. And also, I sympathize with Shayla G because I also enjoy cooking very much. In fact, yesterday I did some cooking because I had some time. And as a treat for myself, when I'm done talking about this book, I get to have a piece of homemade gingerbread that I made myself. I can't wait. I'm waiting out right now. I'm talking about art and literature and text, but in my head, I'm thinking, when you're done, you get a piece of homemade gingerbread, and it's making me so excited. It's making me have the kind of frustration and thwarted joy that I see in this piece by Shayla G. So those were some of the poems that Ms. Hester's class submitted, because Ms. Hester's class is so inspired by I Wish, as I am. I know that some of you out who are watching have already done things that you're inspired by I Wish, and I wish that I could see everything that you wished for via this. But also, I hope that you enjoyed learning about this game that you might play with a friend where somebody draws something and somebody writes something. And you can tell, because I'm on screen and on camera, that it's hard for me to move my hand to the proper position, which is one of the horrible things that is happening in this pandemic, is that no one knows how to cover up a piece of paper correctly when they're on screen. But that's a game. I'm not going to say that I invented it because it's a pretty popular game, but it's a game with text and pictures that I was inspired to play with I Wish. And I'm so grateful for Toon Taligan, who wrote all the mysterious and wondrous words that are in this book. I'm very grateful for Ingrid Godin, who did all of the pictures. And then I'm also grateful, just because his name is smaller doesn't mean he's less important. I'm also really grateful to David Colmer, so that I didn't have to go to school and become fluent in Dutch in order to read this book, that instead I could read it in English, my native language. All right, now I believe we have some questions, is that right?
We do. And I will say, as you were doing the activity, I pulled out my own piece of paper. Again, a little bit harder to do when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do have with me is my dog. And I imagine that my dog is writing a poem, wishing for lunch.
All right.
But even in those,
why don't you read it? I want to hear Megan Waters' poem. Yeah, I'm putting her on the spot. She was hoping she didn't have to read it. She does.
Says, woof, where's lunch? I wish I could get it myself.
Yeah.
So I wrote this from my dog's point of view, because my dog is who I spend most of these days with, since I'm at home in the house, and really connecting with all of you through mediums like this, through getting to talk over video. So it was a fun game for me to play thinking about my dog, but I look forward to doing it with my friends, looking forward to doing it with my nephews and nieces. And so thanks for sharing that game. And I also can't wait to read the I Wish book with my nephew as well. But we did get to share, it's such a good read aloud, especially with all the illustrations. You're right. We had a couple of questions for you already coming in. And if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to use the chat features on Facebook or YouTube. But we did, and I think you kind of touched on this, but Kendra was wondering, what is the best way to start a poem?
What is the best way to start a poem? I think that writing a poem, which is which were the first things that I wrote. I think it's the first things that many people wrote. So right now I usually write novels, but I think writing a poem is the first thing a lot of people do. And when I think about writing a poem, I think about something startling happening where you have to react very quickly. Like when, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but it happens to me oddly in my neighborhood, that a thing that happens in my house is that a bird flies into it. A bird from the outside flies into the house, and it's upset and we're upset. And it took a long time to figure out the best way to deal with this, but you have to do it very quickly. And so when you have an idea for a poem, it's good, I think, to start it. You don't have to finish it, but you can start it as soon as you have the idea. And a great way to do that is to make sure that you have writing materials with you at all times. So I showed off my legal pad, which is where I write my books, but you can't always have a legal pad with you. It's hard because it's big. As I said, it's bigger than my head. And so I also—
fit in your pocket.
Yeah, you can't fit your head in your pocket, as everyone knows, let alone something that's bigger than your head. And please do not try to put your head in your pocket right now. Young people who are listening, this is something I'm going to warn you against. But I carry with me at all times a small notebook. And that's a pretty easy thing to put in your pocket. So I recommend, some people I've also carried index cards in my pocket because I'm a fan of index cards. Some people have a purse, or maybe they just want to hold the notebook wherever they go. But I recommend having something to write on wherever you are and something to write with. So the best way to start a poem is quickly when you have the idea, and you should have your materials handy. So whatever you like to write with and whatever you like to write on, I would have it with you. And then while we're on the subject, I will say that when a bird flies into your house, this is what you do. You need to take something that's cloth and large, like a shirt or a jacket or a towel, and you can then throw it over the bird, because you'll never catch the bird going like this. And sometimes you won't be able to, even if you're like, look, we open the windows, go out, bird. And the bird's like, but I'm so worried, I don't know what I'm doing. And so if you throw a towel over a bird, then you can scoop up the towel and the bird, and then you can go outside and you can open the towel and the bird will fly away and probably won't say thank you, which is a little depressing.
I feel like you've just left us with two good ways to always be prepared.
Yes.
And a towel in case of an emergency.
If you have a towel and a notebook with you all the time, everything's going to be brilliant. This is a great way to live your life. All right, next question.
Yeah, we had another question that just came in now. What do you
I
love
see.
most about the book? What do you love
Well, I'm
most about the
distracted
book?
because you know what I love most about the question is that it's being asked by what looks like a gentleman named Great Coffee Equals Focus, which is really interesting to me because I can't help but picture that, Mr. and Mrs. maybe equals focus, or whoever the parents are of the person were like, what's a good name? Whoever named him said, like, what's a good name that goes with equals focus? And then they said, like, Great Coffee. It's the perfect first name. Great Coffee Equals Focus. And I don't disagree, by the way, with the sentiment that the man's name is expressing. I just had my coffee in this cute little cup right before I started talking with you guys. All right. So what do I love most about the book? I would say I love two things about the book the most. And one is, as I've talked a little bit about, how the illustrations and the pictures have a relationship that is not literal, that somehow they sit together like friends, which I think is a wonderful way of text and illustrations being together. And it's a very refreshing way. And that's one of the things I like about it. But I think also what I like about it is that it mentions death a lot. I enjoy death in literature because I'm thinking about death almost all of the time. And so I think both death and illustrations and pictures sitting together are two good things that make a book. They are the towel and notebook of literature, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that we actually had a comment earlier on in the chat saying that that was one of the reasons that they really attached to this book, is that including fear of death, but talk about death. And it's important because it's a part of life.
Absolutely.
We did have another question coming in, just asking you, when did you know you wanted to become an author?
When did I know I wanted to become an author? Well, I have a story about that, believe it or not. The story, and I don't remember the story. It's a story told by my parents, but my parents say that when I was 5 or 6 years old, someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And that I said I wanted to be an old man who lived on top of a mountain giving advice. Now, I don't know if that story is true because my parents are not reliable in that way. But if it is true, that's the only other career plan I ever had. All I remember is wanting to be a writer. So I don't remember a moment when I knew I wanted to be a writer. I just remember that I really, really wanted to be one. I was always writing down words and I was always thinking about stories. I was always kind of wandering around. I always had many books with me, which is still something that happens. I have a huge pile. I'm just going to show it to you briefly. I have a huge pile of books that I'm looking at right now on my desk. I always have too many books near me. But it's possible that when I was younger, what I wanted to be was an old man living on top of a mountain giving advice. I don't know if that's true because all I remember is wanting to be a writer.
It's funny thinking about some of the reasons I pick up books now is to get advice. So if that's the case, whether it's in a children's book or an adult's book, you always come away from the book.
And I guess there's still time for me to be an old man. I'm not a young man, but I'm not quite old yet. I'm trying to hang on for old age.
You may have to find a mountain though, too. San Francisco has a couple of large hills though.
Yeah, I would be willing. I really like living near the sea, which is where I live, but it's true there's some hills here. I don't know if they would count as mountains. I might have to relocate if I'm really going to be an old man living on the top of a mountain. But I could be an old man by the sea giving advice. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think those are substitutions that just happen in life.
Yeah, location. All right. Is there another question?
We do have one more, and maybe we'll do one more, and then if it comes in, we'll also answer that. But just knowing that this book, this wonderful book, I Wish, was written and you've connected with it and you've connected us all with it. We had someone ask, what is something you wish you would have done as a kid?
Well, this really actually ties into the book because what I really wish I'd done as a kid was learned another language. I wish that I had spent time learning almost any other language than the language that I was already speaking at home. And I've taken little lessons in language here and there, and there's some languages I can kind of read a little bit in and kind of talk a little bit in, but really no. Really, I am monolinguistic, and I find that embarrassing. I find it embarrassing as we think about the planet and the way the planet is coming together. I find it embarrassing as an American who lives in a country that welcomes people from all over the world to come and be a part of the culture that we're in. And part of that is language. So many people speak a language that is not English, and I can't speak to them unless they can speak English. And it's easiest to learn a language when you're a child. I can try to learn it when I'm an adult, and I will continue to try, but it's easy to learn when you're a child. And so I wish, for instance, that I spoke Dutch and could read Dutch. That would be wonderful. Just because David Coleman did an elegant translation and the text is so beautiful when I read it doesn't mean that I actually don't wish that I could read it. And so this book is published, by the way, I think we should say, through Archipelago Press. And they do only literature and translation. They take literature from all over the world in different languages, and they turn it into English books so that people like me can read it. And I'm grateful for that, but I wish that I'd learned to speak another language.
It's interesting because another parent was wondering if you do speak Dutch. And if you don't speak Dutch, how did you find this book? How did this book kind of come to you and you connected with it? How did it fall into your lap, or did you search it out?
Kind of both. Because I'm always interested in literature that comes from places that I haven't been. That's very interesting to me. And literature is, literature has so many different traditions. There's so many different styles of writing books that have happened all over the world, but also it's all the same tradition. It's all writing things down. And I like the way it is the same, but different, which feels like how people are. Everyone's different, but in many ways, everyone's the same. And so I enjoy very much reading literature from countries where I haven't been or that I don't know about. In some cases, even literature from places that I haven't heard of, which is astonishing. And Archipelago Press does a wonderful, wonderful job of finding literature from all over the world. And so I am lucky enough to subscribe to the press, which means that they do all of the work. They find the literature. They translate it into English. They make it into a book, they wrap it up in paper, beautiful paper, and then they put it in a box, and then they mail it to me. And all I do is sit alone and wait for the doorbell to ring. And then the doorbell rings, and there it is, my subscription to the press. And so I'm very proud that I can say that I both stumbled upon this book because I had no idea that this book existed, but also that I sought it out because I like to look for literature that's from a place elsewhere in the world. And I have traveled back when you could travel. I have traveled all sorts of places in the world, not to all places, but a bunch of places. And most countries do a better job of having literature from all over the place. So they say, oh, have you read this? This is over here. And in America, we're very American-centric. We're very English-centric, and we tend to publish our own authors the most. So I like that the press is doing it, and I like that I feel that I'm participating in a global tradition when I'm reading literature and translation.
Well, we are so thankful that you introduced the I Wish book to us. Specifically, you even introduced it to Miss Hester's 5th grade class, who's already gotten the chance to write some poetry and drawn some pictures. And Miss Hester's 5th grade class is at Tacoma Park Education Campus. And their work was featured here by Daniel, and really lovely and hopefully inspiring to other poets out there and families and
it's
activities.
Fantastic work. How could it not be inspiring? How could you have heard those poems and not be inspired? I don't know. I don't think that's possible. I'm so grateful to Esther.
I know we have a couple other people to thank as well. This would not have been possible without Elsewhere Editions, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the United States, the Dutch Culture USA Never Grow Up program, DC Public Schools Library Program, DC Public Library. And you can find more information about this book. You can also find Daniel's books on the DC Public Library's website, which is dclibrary.org.
You can find all kinds of exciting books on the library site.
You have all kinds. And I did want to ask Daniel, if there was one book other than I Wish, maybe of your work, that you would want some families to check out this spring as this weather gets nicer and we can go to a park with a book. Any recommendations for us?
Oh, gosh. I don't really enjoy recommending my own work because I think my own work, for 2 reasons. First of all, you sound like a terrible person when you recommend your own work.
Well, then I'll recommend it, so go check out his work. The other
reason is that my work often is very upsetting and depressing to people. And so there's all kinds of work that you can do. But I would say, I'm trying to think of a good book that I would recommend right now. But if you're interested in the book, if you're about the age, the younger age that you can appreciate this book, you might. There's so many books to recommend, and now I'm feeling like, what do I?
I really put you on the spot with this one.
You did put me on the spot. All right.
Daniel, before we all logged in, was already showing multiple. So yeah, even anything at your desk that you could show off.
Yeah, there are two. One of the reasons that I'm really glad that we did this event in April is that April is Poetry Month. And yes. I think the text of this book kind of resembles poetry. I don't know if Tune Taligan thinks of himself as writing poetry in this book, but it feels like poetry to me. And so during the month of April, I try to read only poetry, which is a lot of fun. And so there are two poets I'm going to recommend just because they're right here on my desk and because they're really good. One is an older poet, no longer with us, and one is a young-ish poet who's, last I checked, still bopping around Brooklyn. So Robert Hayden is a wonderful poet. His collected poems are here, which means they took all the poems that he wrote in his life, basically, and they put them here. He's a terrific poet. And then this is one of my favorite books of poetry in the world. It's by Morgan Parker. How do I get my fingers off it? Here I do. And it's called Other People's Comfort Keeps Me Up at Night, which is a fascinating thing to think about. And I think we've all probably had like sleepless nights here. And I think if you read a little Morgan Parker, you'll feel that other people are thinking about other people's comfort keeping them up at night. I'm sorry I got distracted because my own dog walked by and thought, is there something to eat? Is it gingerbread time yet? And then kept walking. Mm-hmm. What's your dog's name?
So I actually do have two dogs. I have Archie and Rosie, and both are new dogs that during this time, this year at home, I decided I needed some other comfort, and that was in the form of some puppies.
Well, congratulations. That's marvelous. My dog I've had pre-pandemic, and his name is Egg Roll.
Oh my gosh, that is a fantastic name. That is so special.
He looks like an egg roll, and then we got him from a shelter, and the shelter had called him Eggnog. But we felt like a Jewish family should not have a dog named Eggnog. We should have a dog named Egg Roll. So that's what we did.
Egg roll like really hits it. The nail on the head with that one, because that's the most perfect name for any like type of. Yeah, if he can come on screen. We're also thankful to Egg Roll for giving you some time to talk with us today. When I'm sure, he'd much rather be hanging out with you.
Yeah, I think he and I are going to go enjoy some gingerbread.
Well, I think that sounds like a lovely way to continue your day. But thank you again so much. And we're going to make sure that Turning the Page will send out those poetry recommendations from you to our families. Make sure they know how to access them, because for National Poetry Month, along with I Wish, we want to continue to explore other topics and titles that are going to be available to them. And we thank all of the students and look forward to seeing some activities that you hopefully can come up with, kind of following Daniel's prompt, but then also we will be sending out ways that you can do it online and ways you can interact with Elsewhere editions so that you can share it online after you create a poem. So
perfect.
For that. Thank you for a lovely your mid-morning, our afternoon. Thank you for everyone who's joining.
Good morning,
and to share this.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Have a good one.
You too.